Sean Miller pull off the impossible, a recruiting miracle? Why Kevin Sumlin needs to change his recruiting pitch? He wants to recruit to build a winner. And should U of A alum and horse trainer Bob Baffert be considered a GOAT? These stories and more next on the 520. Welcome to the 520. I'm Steve Nunez.
I'm Marty Mata IV. Thanks for joining us.
All right, we got a lot to get to, and we have to eat some humble pie, and here's why. Did Sean Miller just pull off one of the greatest recruiting miracles in college basketball? Four-star recruit Brandon Williams, who recently decommitted from Arizona, recommitted to play for the Wildcats. Just a month ago, Miller had 0 recruits. Miller's 2018 class now ranks at number 21 nationally. Wildcats embattled coach was left for dead after ESPN reported that he was allegedly caught on FBI wiretap discussing paying DeAndre Ayton $100,000.
At this point, I gotta give it to him. At this point, I give it to him. Would I call it a miracle? I would not. We've been here nearly every single season
we've seen a miracle
since he got hired.
Miracle on the court.
We've seen recruit after recruit. When you eat steak every day, steak's not your favorite food. It's not a miracle. It's just the standard of Sean Miller.
I love steak.
Oh my goodness.
Let me just tell you this. I have earned my credentials to criticize Miller. I was also one of the first to call for him to get fired. Okay, but I will say this. I've got to give the guy credit. I mean, he has pulled off something. Think about what happened on that Friday, February 29th, when ESPN released that report. Okay, he had Javon Quinterly, a top point guard, decommit, followed by Sharif O'Neal, and then Brandon Williams. 11 weeks later, look at what he's been able to put together. Devenir Dutrieve, Omar Tillmans, Ryan Luther, Justin Coleman, Brandon Williams, again, recommits. You gotta give him props.
I do.
When props is due.
I do. I don't call it a miracle. He's just been here. He's just back to his standard. The hypothetical question should be, if Sean Miller has this innate talent, this innate sales pitch, why would he pay DeAndre Ayton $100,000? Why would Book Richardson do something of such?
Freaking men on that one. And here's why, because you think about it, we've never said that he's not a good recruiter. We've always given him major props for being a great recruiter, but what the heck was Book Richardson thinking? $20,000 when you have a head coach who can recruit like nobody's business. Think about what he's up against. Right now, Sean Miller must have the best sales pitch ever, because look at what he's able to sell these kids on. Come to Arizona. Do you know what every other coach is telling them? Arizona's going to get sanctioned. You're not going to play in the NCAA tournament. You know, why are you going to go play for Sean Miller when he could be gone? I mean, that's the story all these kids are hearing. And yet, Miller has been able to overcome that obstacle, sell them, and I mean, right now, he could land a 5-star recruit in Jordan Brown.
He can. And to answer my own question and to solidify my own point, when he saw in DeAndre Ayton was somebody that was able to put them over the hump, because year after year they dilute themselves in the NCAA tournament, and still
if Miller lands Jordan Brown, that puts U of A's recruiting class in the top 10 at number 7. I want you then to admit he pulled off a miracle.
I will not admit he pulled off a miracle. I'll admit so when I see how they do in the NCAA tournament this year. And he handles talent.
I'll give you that much.
Where talent is.
I'll give you that much. We'll see what he does.
Could there be a correlation between Arizona's apparel deal and the reason former assistant coach Book Richardson got caught in the FBI's investigation into college basketball fraud? The Wildcats' current deal with Nike is only worth $3.1 million. Only Colorado and Washington State have smaller payouts in the Pac-12. The $3.1 million from Nike goes towards paying coaches, buying Nike uniforms, tennis shoes, and their equipment. And with that being said, UCLA's $13 million deal with Under Armour, well, where is it then?
UCLA has an $18 million deal.
$18 million deal.
But think about this for a second. UCLA right now is squeaky clean. They haven't been mentioned at all, even though they're recruiting some big top-name players. They haven't been mentioned at all in this FBI report. Some of that money, though, that these shoe companies are giving these schools, obviously we know that's always been a problem. But the money that they're giving these schools helps pay for these coaches. And it goes back to what we were talking about right now. Book Richardson, why would you put your hand in the cookie jar for 20 grand? You know why? Because perhaps Arizona isn't getting enough of that shoe deal money to be able to pay its coaches a little bit more. Because you know, around the recruiting area, AAU's tournaments and everything else, there's a lot of vultures trying to entice every coach, every player to take a little bit of something.
And why I didn't want to call it a miracle is because of a headline like this, a story like this. Sean Miller has been tightening screws with butter knives since he got hired. What this says to me is that, you know, the way that the university was taken advantage of by the ESPN story, the way that they're taken advantage of by the NCAA polls, and now the way that they're being taken advantage of by Nike, does the administration, does the university not deem the basketball program a priority? Do they not deem $24 million in income a priority?
I just don't think they deem good business principles a priority. I mean, how can you sign a $3 million deal?
How do they let that happen?
How do they let that happen? They should be back at the negotiating table trying to get more out of that. If Arizona basketball was a private NBA team, guess how much they would sell for? $135 million right now.
And that
the
wouldn't
13th most valued college basketball program in the nation with a $3 million shoe deal. No wonder there's hands in the cookie jar. Seriously,
Can't believe it.
It's pathetic, man. Well, is it time for Arizona to switch it up to put the spotlight on advertising players over cheap season tickets? A study done by Pick 6 Previews ranks Arizona 46 out of the 65 Power 5 schools when it comes to desire or interest to play for the Wildcats. Wildcats finished next to last, just ahead of Colorado in the Pac-12.
Further solidifies my point. I think it's scary, it's frightening to say that credible journalists, Fox Sports Arizona isn't covering unless it's us, ESPN isn't covering. They still don't know who Colin Schuler is. There's an unawareness that Brooks Reed, a Sabino graduate, a University of Arizona graduate, is starting for the Atlanta Falcons at defensive end. There's unawareness because guys like me, my contemporaries, my peers still deem playing for the University of Arizona as settling.
Talk about something biting you in your rear end. It's called the Pac-12 Network. They have failed all of the schools, including Arizona, by putting us in games that start at 8 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock East Coast time, 10 o'clock East Coast. It's ridiculous. So that's hurting us. But let me rewind a little and remind you about something. Last week on the 520, this show right here, you're sitting right there, you said, no, college athletes should not be advertised over the brand of the university. Unbelievable. Yes, they should. They should be big time. Look, last year, the U of A failed to market Khalil Tate as a Heisman hopeful. You know, putting the brand over Khalil Tate, huge mistake. We could have milked it for everything it was worth and gotten so much publicity for this coming season. And you know what? Arizona wouldn't have to be selling tickets for $99. You know what I'm saying? Come on. That's cheap, man. That's chump change.
Is the lack of publicity from them not marketing their players, or could it possibly be from the lack of out-of-conference matchups? Michigan playing Florida, Florida State playing Alabama in the early weeks. USC, a top program in the land, hasn't played a good out-of-conference game. Arizona still playing UTSA and NAU.
Look, man, high school kids are saying Arizona is a not undesirable program, football program. All you have to do, it doesn't cost Arizona any money to throw everything up on Twitter and Facebook and market to the entire country. That's what it's all about. That's free.
Agree to disagree.
An unpaid intern can handle that.
A student.
Khalil Tate, Heisman, man.
Yeah. Is Nogales native and UA alum Bob Baffert the greatest horse trainer of all time? Baffert's horse, Kentucky Derby winner Justify, will race for the second jewel of the Triple Crown at the Preakness on May 19th. Overall, Baffert's horses have won 5 Kentucky Derbies, 6 Preakness Stakes, and 3 Belmont Stakes in 2015. He trained American Pharoah to win the Triple Crown and the Breeders' Cup Classic, the Grand Slam of thoroughbred horse racing.
Consider this. Justify did not race as a 2-year-old. Now as a 3-year-old, Baffert brings him into the Kentucky Derby, and he wins his 4th race in a row. Tucson should rename University Boulevard Bob Baffert. Nogales should rename Grand Avenue that leads across the border Bob Baffert Avenue. All that he's done to keep horse racing alive, especially at Rillito Downs. And by the way, you know how he got his career started? At Rillito Downs
in the 70s.
Not as a trainer, as a jockey in 1975.
At the with all the
Rillito Downs, Bob Baffert, Rillito Downs.
I was going to say, with all the renovations, and now we're deeming him the greatest of all time. Name it the Bob Baffert Rillito facilities, the Bob Baffert Rillito Downs, whatever.
And look what he's done for racing and betting. I mean, Tucson has a few off-track betting places. You should see how they are packed come race day and all the Bob Baffert fans that are out there. Because why? He's one of us.
He's one of us. Nogales native, Arizona native.
All right, well, where's the LOVE for the Tucson Roadrunners? Although the team had a heartbreaking loss in overtime in Monday night's game against Texas, it's still a competitive Pacific Division Finals. Admittedly, this series is the best fan turnout we've seen for the Tucson Roadrunners so far this year, but whole sections of the TCC are still completely empty? Come on, Tucson. You can do better than that. Those stands should be completely filled, completely packed, in a complete whiteout representing our home hockey team. And if you don't know hockey, learn it.
The theme of this show seems to be, where's the disconnect? How do we bridge the gap? Because I'll tell you what, there's no excuse when every game the audio is done on 1490 AM. You can stream the Roadrunner games on the AHL website for a small price. Where's the disconnect between selling tickets and getting the fans? And I tell you what, because me personally, I don't feel that the Tucson Roadrunners belong to Tucson. I said it before, there's an apparel deal there.
No,
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what.
They're called Tucson Roadrunners. How do they not belong to Tucson? They've done a great job marketing. They've been all over the place. I mean, they've taught and educated everyone that there's actually a sheet of ice that can stick in Tucson. I mean, they've done a great job of at least getting some people in. I'm not going to blame people like me who did not grow up watching hockey. So I don't want to put the blame on us. I want to put the blame on all those transplants and all those people from the Midwest and the East Coast who now live in Tucson, who wear these pro hockey jerseys and aren't showing up to the game. They should be the ones filling that stadium or that arena, because it's easy to be able to sell tickets to 8,000 people. That's all it takes to sell out.
And I'll give it to them. They've done a fantastic job with no monetary support. Like I said in the last episode, I just don't feel that the brand of the Roadrunners belongs to Tucson the same way that the Sidewinders belong to Tucson, because we're quite frankly still talking about the Sidewinders.
But again, we have a history of spring training baseball and AAA baseball. We've never, except for one time in 1975, did we have hockey in this city. And now the Roadrunners are bringing it. Let's go ahead and take a look at their schedule, because take a look at this, baby. Roadrunners playing Austin Stars Friday, May 11th. That's game number 4. On Sunday, May 13th. Game number 5, coming back home to the Tucson Arena, also on Monday, May the 14th.
And catch those games on 1490 AM and the AHL website.
And let's just go to the game and support the Roadrunners.
Of course.
All right. Let's jump right into Do We Care? As you know, we love to tackle community issues and not just sports, break them down and ask ourselves, do we care? Well, provisions in Governor Doug Ducey's education budget will increase property taxes for homeowners living within TUSD. The $16 million in secondary taxes used to cover the cost of the federal court order on desegregation was paid for by the state, but Ducey grabbed this money to help pay for teacher pay raises. TUSD homeowners will now pay an extra $240 per $100,000 assessed value of their home. Unbelievable.
So, quick story, real quick. Back in high school, there's something called the fifth quarter. Not me personally that I partake. The fifth quarter is when you lose a game in football. So after the fourth quarter, you lose, and then in the fifth quarter, you catch the guys in the parking lot, and you do what you do in a parking lot with a bunch of testosterone.
So you're suggesting put some gloves on. Let's get Ducey the lawmakers.
This is Doug Ducey's fifth quarter. He let democracy do what it does in the first 4 quarters, and now this is his fifth quarter where he catches us in the parking lot with our pants down.
And I think he is sticking it to TUSD, because that's been the thorn in his side. But let me just say this, okay? It's unbelievable that TUSD is the only school district that is having their taxes raised, or residents living within having their taxes raised. Maricopa also has a DSEG program funding. Guess what? They got an increase under Ducey's budget, not TUSD.
Shameful.
You know what? Fifth quarter, baby. Let's do
That's
it.
the fifth quarter. Education advocates plan to launch a ballot initiative to raise income taxes on individuals earning $250,000 a year and couples earning more than $500,000. Organizers need 150,000 signatures to put the measure invest into the Education Act on the November ballot.
Well, the Red for Ed movement, when 60,000 teachers and supporters showed up to the state capitol a couple of weeks ago during the walkout, that was a sign that democracy is alive again. I love this move. You know why? Because I hate the fact that the state and state lawmakers took it out of the voters' hands when they extended that 1/6 of 1% sales tax through 2041. That brings in $500 million for education. They didn't let us have a say. Now, let the voters decide on who gets taxed and who doesn't. Because if you're not taxing one certain person, then another person like you or me are getting taxed. I don't like it.
I agree with you completely. Just like we had said so many times before, and we always have to bring it back to us like a broken record, this will set the example for Arizona lawmakers, for state lawmakers, for the federal government. Democracy is still alive. The freedom to assemble is still alive. Keep going, keep going.
Stop raising our taxes.
And stop raising our taxes at the least. Keep it going.
Well, Pima County plans to test different types of asphalts to find the best mix that would build roads that would hold up against Tucson's blistering summer heat. Well, a dozen 1,000-foot segments of road along San Joaquin near Ajo Highway will serve as the test site.
And I'll tell you what, I could be for this if they don't outsource it. They don't outsource the study to California, to Texas, to Washington or something like that, because I do agree the reason asphalt can't last in Arizona is because it's not made in Arizona. Why don't we just do what Houston does and make the roads concrete? It doesn't last.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know what doesn't work. Look at our roads. What was that road on Stone Avenue asphalt made with? Oh, let's not use that one. Broadway, Speedway, Grant, let's not use that asphalt. It doesn't take rocket science to say, this is what doesn't work, so let's use something else. Why study it? Let's go, man. Fix the roads. Quit spending that $16 million in HERF funds to test the product. Build the product. That's what we need.
And I
better
say
roads.
Arizona has the most sunlight in the entire country.
We're wasting taxpayer dollars on tests that we don't need.
I think we need it. You got the most sunlight in all of the country. We got to put it to use.
Well, you've heard the phrase, oh, no, you didn't. Well, here at the 520, we're not afraid to tell it like it is with, oh, yes, we did. Well, speaking of legal corruption, there's a big reason the Red for Ed organizers wanted a 20% pay raise and now want to pass an income tax proposal that increases taxes for the wealthy, as we just discussed right now. And it starts with Arizona Senate President, seen right here, Steve Yarbrough. Turns out the Chandler Republicans spearheaded the state's tax credit program that diverts income tax money to private schools at a 20% increase each year, according to the Republic. This year, the program is siphoning $74.3 million from the state budget. This mountain-high pile of tax credit money is expected to balloon to $662 million by 2030. Well, here's where Yarbrough gets caught with his hands in the cookie jar. Yarbrough owns Arizona Christian School Tuition Organization, a nonprofit that raised over $21 million via individual tax credit donations in 2016. Of that, Yarbrough's nonprofit doled out more than $14 million in scholarships. By law, his organization was able to keep 10% of that money, or about $7 million. Wait, there's more. According to IRS filings, Yarbrough also scored by paying the company he owns more than $659,000 to process scholarship applications. And he collected thousands more because he owns a building that houses his processing center. So, do we really need to do the math? And critics want to blame teachers for wanting 20% raises when the state's top senator has potentially made millions off private school tax credit he oversees and profits from. What happened to don't tread on me? How can anyone turn a blind eye to this profiteering and then call themselves a true patriot? Shame on those of you who fail to stand up for the very same principles you fight to protect, unless it serves you or your political party. Stand up.
Stand up. Thank you, Steve. And last week, I sounded off toward the NFL and the still present opposition of the kneeling protest. It seems as it's still making headlines, it's only getting worse. The NFL has now declared that it will be up to the frightened organizations to implement their own policies regarding kneeling for the anthem. While last year's Week 3 made me anything but proud as a fan when Roger Goodell and my favorite coaches supported their own players, I'm hopeful the same mindset will still be there come this year's Week 1. But that's the thing about it. What about the teams that abstain from comments? Are they opposed? Do they not care? What about the players that made it very clear that they will be standing? What this is foreseeably doing is absolutely shameful. It seems like the NFL has turned their back on fundamental patriotism and is now panicking to a point that even their own workplace has become divided. Soon, will I not catch an interview because I was at the March for Our Lives? Will these teachers supporting the Red for Ed be legally unable to hold an admin position because of their political beliefs lower on the pyramid? After seeing fourth quarter saves to 28-3 comebacks and those memories educating me as a young man for the first time in my life, I am shamed and dismal to be a fan of the NFL.
The NFL has got to take a uniform stand. Period. I'm kind of torn on this, but I say, you know what? You take a stand and you stand united, or you don't stand for nothing at all.
Of course.
And you know what? That is not the time and place to protest during the national anthem on the football field. Do it after, on your own time.
Let the Red for Ed be an example. The Red for Ed will set an example. The freedom to assemble is still powerful.
Well said. All right, well, before we go, we'd like to send a shout out to Kalani Goldberg as the 520's clip of the week. On Monday, the First Lady also gave a major shout out to a Valley teen while promoting her new Be Best campaign for kids. During a speech at the White House, Melania Trump recognized Kalani for her viral anti-bullying message. Nice to see there, right?
Of course.
Gotta give her props for
that. We got to. That's what we're here for.
Look, we need young leaders to step up and really take the bull by the horn and put an end to bullying. It's hurting too many kids. It's jeopardizing their ability to learn and get a good education because of all the stress and all the bullying that's happening in schools. It needs to stop. I'm glad a 12-year-old or a young lady like Kalani is taking the lead on that.
And I'm glad the First Lady can recognize it.
Yeah. Now we need others.
Of course.
Above the First Lady and others in positions of power to recognize that tweets are bullying and can be bullying. All right, bottom line. Our goal is to tell it like it is because it's all about giving voice to opinions even if you don't agree.
Be sure to follow the 520 on Facebook and on Twitter at the 520 Tucson.
And if you have a topic you want us to cover, send us an email at the 520@kvoa.com. I'm Steve Nunez.
I'm Artie Mata IV. Join us next week on the 520.
Go Wildcats.